Welcome back, everyone. Let's dive right into today's explainer. We're mapping the absolute most crucial current affairs for July 7th, 2026, straight to your UPSC syllabus. So let's get started. Here's what's on the docket today. We're looking at polity and governance updates, internal security and borders, economy, climate and agriculture, science, tech and environment, and finally, international relations and diplomacy. Basically, we're taking a journey from domestic issues right out to the global stage.
All right, Section 1, Polity and Governance. Let's kick things off with General Studies Paper 2. We've got some fascinating constitutional debates and critical legislative updates to unpack.
So, check out this conceptual distinction that's recently been reignited by political demands. The Supreme Court has consistently maintained that voting in India is merely a statutory right, meaning it's granted by legislation, not a fundamental constitutional right. It's kind of wild when you think about it, right? It's a fascinating paradox for our democracy. The right not to vote actually enjoys constitutional protection, but the right to vote doesn't. You'll definitely want to keep this distinction razor sharp for your polity essays.
Now, understanding the sheer scale of our governance challenges is absolutely critical. Just take a look at Malkangiri in Odisha. Over 10% of its electorate, that's nearly 28,000 names, many of them early migrants, were just dropped from the draft rolls. Meanwhile, we're watching the methodological complexities of the upcoming 2027 census unfold in real time as they pretest this open column for caste enumeration. And down south, Tamil Nadu is heavily objecting to a food security amendment. It would cap rations at 7 kilograms per person, which they argue really hurts vulnerable families compared to their flat 35 kilograms per household model. But hey, on a brighter note for economic governance, the cooperative sector is booming. We just saw the announcement of a new cooperative life insurance firm and the expansion of the Bharat taxi platform.
We're also tracking two highly scrutinized legal developments. And here, we really just need to stick to the facts, the specific acts and the political pushback they're getting. Over in Madhya Pradesh, we're seeing the first state reconstitute its Waqf board under the 2025 Amendment Act by actually appointing two non-Muslim Hindu members. And as you might expect, that move is currently facing Supreme Court scrutiny. At the exact same time, Meghalaya's chief minister is raising some really urgent concerns over Section 16A5 of the proposed FCRA amendments. The worry there is that it could empower authorities to take over the assets of Christian NGOs if their registration happens to lapse. Honestly, both of these are vital test cases for minority rights and federal governance right now.
Moving on to Section 2, Internal Security and Borders. Let's see how these domestic policies actually intersect with our border management.
Before we even touch mainland borders, do me a favor and lock this geography into your visual memory for prelims. Look at the strategic positioning of the Great Nicobar region, specifically Galathea National Park and the Indira Point Lighthouse. Our maritime security footprint right here is absolutely critical.
Now, shifting back to our land borders, this massive number you're seeing, 31,789. That represents the total number of illegal immigrants deported from Assam over the last 4 decades. It's a figure that sits right at the center of our border security discourse and regional demographics.
And the legal framework that dictates these detection and deportation processes? It's still the 1985 Assam Accord. As you can see, the cutoff date of March 24, 1971 remains the benchmark. And just to put things in perspective, between 2011 and June of this year alone, over 2,000 individuals were deported. It really highlights the immense ongoing logistical challenge of border protection. Not to mention, roughly 228 kilometers of the India-Bangladesh border in that specific sector is now completely fenced.
Of course, our internal security also faces persistent external threats. The NIA's recent supplementary charge sheet against Lashkar-e-Taiba chief Hafiz Saeed for that devastating April 2025 Pahalgam attack, well, it really underscores the persistent cross-border terrorism threat we're dealing with. And notably, the NIA has charged both LET and its proxy, the Resistance Front, as legal entities for their direct roles in the attack.
All right, let's jump into Section 3, Economy, Climate, and Agriculture. Shifting gears to the economy, we really need to understand how weather patterns directly dictate our macroeconomic stability.
So, the burning question for your economic analysis right now is this: will El Niño weaken India's economy? The IMD is forecasting below normal July rainfall, and that's coming right on the heels of a massive 40% deficit in June. Basically, we are potentially staring down the barrel of a highly disruptive El Niño.
And listen, a weak monsoon isn't just a farming issue. It creates this massive cascading domino effect that can literally shave basis points off our overall GDP growth. Look at the impacts on the ground. Farmers are shifting away from maize and vegetables, moving toward pulses just because of water stress. What happens next? That depresses rural incomes, which absolutely kills aggregate demand. Then, food and beverage inflation surges. We're already seeing potato and onion prices spike. Finally, if domestic output falls short, the government has to step in and rely on emergency imports. And you guessed it, that widens our current account deficit.
To highlight another critical vulnerability tied to our climate, take a look at this figure: 18 terawatt hours. That represents a massive power generation gap projected over the next year by the think tank CREA. And the reason for this projected gap is pretty clear. Weaker wind and hydropower output caused by El Niño, combined with a massive surge in demand for air conditioning, means we're likely going to be forced to rely on carbon-heavy coal just to bridge that 18 terawatt-hour shortfall. That translates to an estimated 17 million extra tons of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere. It's going to be a huge test for our climate goals for sure.
Okay, moving on to Section 4, Science, Tech, and Environment. Let's examine some of our recent scientific advancements and, frankly, our technological vulnerabilities. This is prime material for both prelims and your tech essays. First up, a genuinely fascinating private space milestone. India's Vikram 1 rocket, which is our first privately developed orbital-class rocket, is getting ready to launch. And it's carrying some completely unique payloads, including an 18-karat gold miniaturized rocket and actual diamond jewelry mounted on an aluminum baseplate. No, really. It just goes to show exactly how commercialized the private space sector is becoming.
Meanwhile, back on the ground and at sea, we're seeing the commissioning of advanced military assets like the Mahendragiri's stealth frigate, which is great for boosting our Indo-Pacific presence. But at the exact same time, we're grappling with the cybersecurity risks of imported Chinese e-rickshaw components. Security experts have been pointed out that the Bluetooth battery management systems in these rickshaws have some glaring vulnerabilities. And, simply banning apps just won't fix it anymore. We urgently need robust supply chain oversight and actual hardware security standards.
All right, let's bring it home with Section 5, International Relations and Diplomacy. We're panning out to the global stage now to analyze India's diplomatic maneuvering for GS Paper 2. Take a look at PM Modi's strategic visit to Indonesia. This is the first leg of a three-nation tour, and it strongly reinforces our Act East policy and the Mahasagar vision right there in the heart of the Indo-Pacific. It's a very clear signal of our strong maritime partnerships. Simultaneously, India is juggling multiple diplomatic initiatives. We're actively mobilizing support for a 2028-2029 UNSC non-permanent seat running against Tajikistan. We're also navigating this super complex transition in AI governance. We're trying to balance our roots in the global south with strategic alignments, like stepping up as a middle power to join the US-dominated Pax Silica semiconductor chain. Oh, and on the law enforcement front, India is currently hosting the BRICS anti-drug agencies in Guwahati, really focusing on modern threats like darknet marketplaces and maritime drug trafficking routes.
But here's where regional dynamics start to get a bit complicated. The Pentagon recently decided to rename its Indo-Pacific Command back to just the Pacific Command. It's a symbolic reversal from 2018, and it signals a potential reprioritization away from our immediate sphere and back towards managing Beijing. The worry is that this might dilute focus on frameworks like the Quad.
And that shift is particularly alarming when you look at immediate provocations. Just this week, a Chinese submarine test-fired a strategic missile carrying a dummy warhead directly into the Pacific Ocean. As you'd expect, it drew widespread regional condemnation. The waters around us are heating up fast, folks.
So, as you synthesize all of this for your mains preparation, I want you to ask yourself, with the U.S. pivoting its strategy in naming conventions and China aggressively testing missiles right in the Pacific, how must India recalibrate its strategic autonomy? How do we actually maintain an independent, secure posture in a world that's becoming increasingly polarized and volatile? Think on that. Keep analyzing the news, keep studying hard, and I will catch you in the next explainer.